What up, people? Push Wild Black here with Push Wild Black Sports. And I wanted to, before I go into the playoffs, I wanted to talk about the Bulls and I wanted to talk about their season and what does it all mean. So the Bulls finished the season with a 27-54 record. I actually predicted that they go 27 wins because based on how Fred was going to do his offense, by it being such a spacing and three-point style offense, there are going to be some games that you shoot yourself into said games. So I figured there's going to be 7 games in the season where just purely off of shooting, you're going to win a game just off of a hot shooting night. And they got the 27 games, but it wasn't how I figured it was going to be. So a lot of injury happened beforehand. Nico Mirotic and Bobby Portis, they get into a fight. Bobby breaks Nico's jaw. Bobby gets suspended for 2 weeks. Nico is on the injury reserve for 6. So Chris Dunn broke a finger. He's rehabbing. Zach LaVine is coming from a ACL. He's rehabbing. So there's 4 dudes at the start of the season that have injury problems. And so basically you have Jerian Grant, you have Justin Holiday, you have Denzel Valentine. And Jerian Grant was indecisive as a point guard. Justin Holiday was your leading scorer, but Justin Holiday was inconsistent. And with that offense, by them shooting a bunch of threes, it really didn't look good because you don't have three-point shooters. So they go 3 for 20 until December. December comes around, Nico's back, and Bobby's back, Nico's back. They go 8-2, and they have the best record in the NBA in December, and Nico's playing his lights out. They flip Nico for a first-round pick to the Pelicans. So that's going to be a top 20 pick. So then, while this is happening, Chris Dunn his fingers healed. They got him on limited minutes. The limited minutes that they do have that you do see with Dunn, which I was vlogging about this, it was really apparent that Dunn needs to be starting. It was also really apparent that while Nico and Bobby was out and Lauri Markkanen, the 7th pick for the Bulls, he had to start. It was really apparent that he continued starting because he was more athletic than both of them, and he was a better three-point shooter than both of them. Not necessarily as far as statistically, but just how his release was quicker, how it came off his hand was better, and it just seemed like Nico was inconsistent and Bobby is an energy guy. So there's really no reason for Nico and Bobby when they came back to play. So Lauri Markkanen was having a good rookie season. Chris Dunn was having a good season. When it became apparent that once Chris Dunn was completely healthy and it became apparent that he's the starting point guard, and actually they had Kay Felder on the roster, and Kay Felder was he ran the offense better than Jerian Grant did. So when Chris was in the starting rotation, he can defend both positions. He ran the offense better, and everything was clicking for good or bad, because the Bulls in the media, everybody was like, the Bulls needed to tank. I never thought the Bulls needed to tank. I figured they were going to be bad anyway because of what Fred wanted to run. Because if you watch Fred Fred's offense, if you watch the Bulls' offense during preseason, what he wanted to do was basically what Golden State does and what Houston does. Shoot a lot of threes and a lot of spacing and a lot of ball movement. You don't have the ball, like, you don't have the three-point shooters for that. So I figured they were going to be bad anyway. When everybody was healthy and Lauri Markkanen was better than everybody figured, they ended the All-Star break 20-36. And they had that crazy December where they were 8-2. And they were actually a good defensive team, which was surprising because when Fred was coach last year, they really didn't defend well. When Fred started coaching the Bulls, they lost their defensive identity. So the idea that this team was going to tank this season, to me, that was never the plan for the season. The plan for the season was to see what you have as far as assets with Lauri Markkanen, Chris Dunn, and Zach LaVine, which I'll get to the whole Zach LaVine thing in a second. And to see if Fred can coach and to see what else they have. So it really wasn't about tanking or not. It was about seeing what you got. Fred could actually coach because sometime in the season, he still had the three-point aspect of the offense, but there were games where he wasn't really stressing for them to take a bunch of threes because it got really bad during that 3-for-20 stretch where they were just shooting threes and nobody was hitting them, and it was crazy. The ball movement was still there, but there were games where they settled for jump shots and shots in transition. When one of the things that was frustrating me and frustrating, honestly, the broadcast too, it became apparent that Lauri Markkanen is your best player. And I said this during and beginning of the season. Are you with Fred Hoiberg? Are you a coach that runs your stuff, or are you a coach that knows how to coach? Meaning, are you a coach that will tweak your offense for the talent around you, or are you a coach that just runs what you run? He can tweak his offense. And that 8-2 run in December, that 20-36 record at All-Star break, shows me that this team is responding to him, and it also shows me that he's not overwhelmed. Because the first couple seasons he was coach, it seemed like he was really, really overwhelmed, especially last season. This season, Fred showed glimpses of his coaching ability, and actually the organization, due to an injury, I think it was an injury, but the organization kind of put him in a weird situation because they were trying to tank. They won't admit it, and they sort of admitted it without admitting it, to the point that the NBA kind of said, hey man, y'all need to play your veterans. Because there was a point after the All-Star break that they stopped playing, Robin Lopez and Justin Holiday and Jerian Grant, and they were only playing like the young guys, like the second tier guys, and a couple of call-ups from the Windy City Bulls, mainly Blankney and a couple other guys. And and everyone's healthy though. So the league, Adam Silver had to literally tell them, hey, y'all need to actually play some of your veterans now, or at least have them in the rotation, because we don't want it to look like you guys are tanking. Because they had just, and I mentioned this in another video, at the time they just fined Mark Cuban, I think it was like $60,000, because he went on a podcast and said they were tanking. So it was a weird situation where they kind of had to monitor minutes with the veterans, Justin Holiday, Jerian Grant, and Robin Lopez. they had to monitor the minutes and they had to kind of, okay, you play today, you sit down tomorrow, instead of it just being like none of y'all play, and then we have a different lineup every 5 games, and then we switch a different young lineup. So Antonio Blakeney, that's the call up that they had that of note, because Blakeney can actually score a little bit. He was the D-League Rookie of the Year. He was the G-League Rookie of the Year, and he got called up from the Windy City Bulls. And in a few games, in the games that he was able to play in, he played good. He played good. He's still inconsistent. Another year of seasoning would actually help, I think, but he played decent. But yeah, Fred can coach, which I didn't think he could. The Zach LaVine situation, the tanking situation was weird because that 2036 record at All-Star break, I don't think that was meant to happen. I think it was they did a real good job. Everything started clicking with that offense in December, and then all of a sudden it was they won 20 games. And then it was like, okay, what are we going to do now? Because they were trying to get, I've heard locally that after the Jimmy Butler trade, they were hoping to get a record just naturally where they get a top 3 pick. They're better than what we all thought they were going to be. They're better than what the organization thought they were going to be, and they're going to finish. They finished with probably either a top 6 pick or a top 8 pick. And quite honestly, if Chris Dunn doesn't land weird on a dunk and like gets a concussion and a chipped tooth, they might be a 30-win team. I don't know, not challenging for a playoff spot, but they might be, closer to 31, 35, maybe 36-win team, because Chris Dunn basically ran that offense well. And Lauri Markkanen, just think if Fred built the offense, still his movement, still spacing, but just think if they built the offense around him. Because Lauri Markkanen is the ceiling. The comparison is Dirk Nowitzki. The ceiling for him is Kristaps Porzingis. I don't think he's that, but he's more athletic than Dirk. I watched Dirk since he was a rookie because I was in Dallas when he got drafted, and no, let me take that back. He got drafted in 90. He got drafted in 98. So I wasn't there, but I knew of him getting drafted because when he got drafted, it was the same draft that Paul Pierce got drafted, and he got picked before Paul Pierce did. So I watched him play because I came back to Dallas at around 2002, and that's when Steve Nash and Dirk was there, and Rafe LaFrentz was there, and I watched Dallas play. I watched Dirk play, not necessarily his rookie year, but the year they first got to the playoffs. I think it was like 2000, 2001, where they first broke through when they got to the playoffs that year. So Dirk wasn't as athletic as Markkanen was. The shooting stroke was there. When Dirk came into the league, the athleticism wasn't. The inside game wasn't. The defensive presence wasn't. I still don't think Dirk is a good defender. And Dirk's inside presence, the little that he has, he got most of it when because Don Nelson wasn't asking Dirk Nowitzki to do inside out. He was on the perimeter. He had a little bit of a post game, but that really wasn't what his strength was. he got his post game when Avery Johnson came, and especially that season that they ended up making it to the finals, losing to the Heat. That's when Dirk's post game was really okay. Now you have a post game now, but for years, man, Dirk really wasn't a post player at all. Dirk was more in the perimeter. He was that stretch four, in some cases, stretch three. Because there was some times that he played a stretch, like small forward, and just for floor spacing. But marketing, the athleticism is there already. The post game is there. The defensive ability is there. The ball handling is there. He can actually handle the ball a little. I think he's a little better than Dirk. Or if he's in the right situation. See, the thing with marketing though is how's the offense going to run? Because he has the talent to be one of the best big men, especially now the way the NBA is now. He has the talent to be one of the best big men, in the modern NBA. It just depends on how the offense is going to run. Because last year, it was frustrating. He was putting up the numbers he was putting up by accident. Like, they weren't running the offense to him. He was kind of letting the game come to him. And it was frustrating watching because it was apparent that he was the dude, and they weren't giving him the ball. And they weren't making sure he got the ball. It was basically Justin Holiday and Denzel Valentine, especially Denzel Valentine early. They were just putting up crazy shots, but he seemed to get he seemed to get better, and he seemed to get more comfortable, and the team seemed to get more comfortable, with him starting, and they started getting plays. They started drawing plays for him during the season, and he really blossomed into a top rookie. Now, Chris Dunn is the starting point guard. When this team gets good, he'll be the starting point guard. He's the starting point guard now, unless a top tier point guard falls in their lap. Chris Dunn can defend multiple positions. He can defend both positions. He's 6'4". He's a heck of a defender. The issue with Chris Dunn that I'm seeing is his ability to go to the rim, because he can do it. Is just how consistent are you? And as much as I enjoy seeing Chris Dunn handle the ball and run the offense, he does some silly turnovers, and it's frustrating sometimes because a lot of those turnovers can come in inopportune time. Now, in this season, it was okay because they were trying to tank on purpose, because next year's lottery the lottery's going to change, and it's not going to go by record anymore. It's going to go by percentage, more so than record. So this is a situation where they were going to try to get a top 5 pick, and they're going to try to develop and get a top 5 pick. And I guess after what I'm hearing today, going to next season trying to compete for a playoff position or trying to compete more. So they got cap space. They were able to flip Nico Mirotic to a first round pick, which they were trying to do last year. They couldn't do anything. Nico Mirotic couldn't get any money on the free agent market except for the Bulls, and for the Bulls to flip that into a first round pick, even though it's to the Pelicans, that if the Pelicans end up losing in the first round, that's a top 20 pick. The Bulls are probably going to be either 6th or 8th in the lottery. That's a good idea. That's a good move for them. With the Zach LaVine situation, I know Zach LaVine was the the linchpin of the trade when it happened. But see, here's my thing with the Zach LaVine thing. Like, is Zach LaVine gonna be? Because Zach LaVine next year he's up for an extension, and next year is his last year. So they're talking about getting him an extension, and whether or not he's a max guy or not. He was nursing an injury. He was coming back from an injury. He was on a restriction, and he got injured again. And the thing with Zach LaVine is, when he was coming back, when he was in the offense, it was kind of like the Jimmy Butler syndrome, because it was kind of like, okay, I'm going to get my shots. And if you're going to trade Jimmy Butler, which I agree with, I'm probably the only person in Chicago and the only person, nationally, really, that agreed with the Jimmy Butler trade. And actually, they should have did it a couple summers ago or last draft. But I was the only person that probably agreed with the Jimmy Butler move. I've seen what Jimmy Butler can do. I thought he would be better on Minnesota. He actually has been, even though Minnesota barely made the playoffs and I had them going fifth. He's been better with Minnesota just because he's not asked to really be, the linchpin of the offense. He's just asked to close. And the reason that Minnesota finished the way they finished is because Jimmy got hurt. And he came back just in time for the season to end to help them get in the playoffs. But as a Bull, Jimmy Butler wasn't going to lead you anywhere. Jimmy Butler wasn't going to lead you as being the number one dude in the Eastern Conference. You've seen what Jimmy Butler can do as the main guy. And you're barely making it to the playoffs as the main guy. And you get knocked out by a team that you had in the ropes. You had by the ropes in Boston, where Isaiah Thomas, who's 5'9", basically dominated until once an injury happens. Once Rajon Rondo breaks his thumb. So, to me, Jimmy Butler, it was good to get rid of Jimmy Butler. You get the Lauri Markkanen pick, you get Chris Dunn. The Zach LaVine situation is, like I said, it was a lot of ball stopping and it was a lot of, I'm going to get my shot. So I don't know what that is. I don't know what that means. I don't know if you have a more athletic Jimmy Butler on your hands that isn't that good of a defender, or is it just you coming back from injury and you trying to figure out your way? And him being a point guard, because that happened this season, wasn't working. He did it, but that isn't his natural position. So the idea of him being a max dude, I don't know. I don't know if he's a max guy or not. I don't know if he's the linchpin of the offense. I don't know if now, here's my theory, or here's what I think they should do. I think you should see what you have in Zach, and you don't extend him this coming season. You kind of wait until the end of the season to see if he's a fit. And if he isn't a fit, but he's still good, I wouldn't be opposed to, and I know nationally this hasn't been talked about, or locally this hasn't been talked about, but wouldn't be opposed to trading him if he isn't a fit. Like, if him and Chris Dunn and Lauri Markkanen don't coexist well, you trade Zach LaVine and see what you can get for him. You know what I'm saying? And I like Zach LaVine. And I said in a video response to Legend Winning that Zach LaVine has an opportunity to be a star here, and he does. Like, over the three of Chris Dunn, Lauri Markkanen, and Zach LaVine is the most talented dude. Zach LaVine's 23 years old. Zach LaVine can shoot the three. Zach LaVine can go to the lane. He can do defensively, I'm not sure, but he's the most athletic dude we have on the team right now. But if he isn't a fit and it becomes like a ball stopping offense and it's really not moving like Fred would like it to move, then if they trade, because I don't want Zach LaVine to leave for nothing, but if they end up trading Zach LaVine because it isn't a fit and they end up getting a younger player or they end up getting another draft pick, then I would not be like, that's a misstep with Pax and that's a misstep with Gar because it wasn't a fit and you were able to flip him for something. So, I don't know. I think that this season, although very painful, and especially that 3-20 stretch, and that stretch that they sort of decided that they were going to tank, there were games that it was painful to watch. But there was some bright spots. Lauri Markkanen is your best player. Zach LaVine is a question mark. Chris Dunn is a starting point guard. He can probably be an elite point guard in the East, because that was one of the things too. What do you have in Chris Dunn? You have something in Chris Dunn. Lauri Markkanen is Dirk Nowitzki. I'm gonna say he's Dirk Nowitzki. He's more athletic than that. But Zach LaVine's a question mark. If it works out, yay. If it doesn't work out, you can flip him for something because he's young enough to where somebody's gonna be like, okay, we'll take a shot at him. And you got 2 draft picks out this season. You got a top 6 pick or a top 8 pick, and you have a top 20 pick with the New Orleans pick you got for Nico. So, and Fred can coach. So this season wasn't a total loss. And there are bright spots on the bench too. David Nwaba is a heck of a defender. He's good in transition, and he's a bright spot. You have, even though Denzel Valentine had points during the season that was frustrating because he wanted to get his early, if he develops that spot up 3, or if he's that Swiss Army knife where you're that wing player that's a forward that can run in certain situations, can run an offense or run what Fred wants him to run, cool. If Lauri Markkanen can go off of screens better, because that's something that was mentioned today, if Lauri Markkanen can run off of screens better and they actually get him more looks and kind of make him the local point of the offense, then you have something. So I don't necessarily know if that means playoffs next season or that means like a top 10 finish in the conference, but there's bright spots. There's bright spots on the bench. They said Cameron Payne is the backup point guard. A lot of people up here nationally, or like a lot of people locally rather, are saying, nah, he's not that good. Yes, compared to Chris Dunn, he's not. But he can run your stuff. And Jerian Grant, we found out some things about Jerian Grant. Jerian Grant's more suited as a 2 guard or more suited off the bench where he's not. See, what was going on with Jerian Grant was he was always looking over his shoulder at Chris Dunn. So now with him being either off the bench or him being a 2 guard off the bench, then it's more feasible for what they're trying to do. Antonio Blakeney was good. Kilpatrick was good. You know what I'm saying? They have, there's a big man. Bobby Portis had a couple 40-point games. So, because I basically said both of them dudes should be traded, Nico and Bobby, just because of how everything went down with that fight. But the team rallied around Bobby Portis. He seemed real contrite about the situation. And Bobby's that energy dude. Bobby's that energy dude that can put up, 20 points if he has a good night, and 40 points if he has a good night. So this was a good season, even though it was 27 wins, even though there was a lot of ugly games, and even though it wasn't as lottery, I guess, even though the organization didn't get as high as the draft pick as they wanted, there are, as a Bulls fan, I'm excited. I'm excited for the future, because there are some building blocks, and with the draft pick, and with 2 draft picks, and with the with the cap space, and they have to be really smart with the cap space. Like, I wouldn't be dumb with the cap space. I wouldn't just go with name. Just build, I wouldn't just sign a big name or a big veteran just to sign one. I would just continue to build your system and just continue to have guys that fit your system and go from there. But yeah, I'm excited, even though it was really frustrating to watch. I don't know about Zach LaVine. I think Zach LaVine fits in the offense. Cool. I think you don't really give him and I'm probably the only person in Chicago that will say this, but I don't think you give him an extension until you know he fits. And if he doesn't fit, see if you can get him out of here for something else. But anyway, Push Your Wild Black out. Later, I will be doing I don't know if I'm going to do a prediction vlog about the playoffs or not. I might just jump into playoffs. I'm not sure. But this will be coming up tonight. And I'll talk to y'all soon. Push Your Wild Black out. Later.